Hello, friends, and welcome back to the Joyfully Free Journey. I'm your host, Lacey Reeves, and I'm really excited about today's conversation. I do want to give a trigger warning. If you or a loved one has experienced loss, be that the loss of a loved one, a family member, a friend, or are currently on a journey of infertility, I want to give a trigger warning. Our guest today is Sherri Leon Guerrero, and she is a fierce advocate for women's reproductive health. We had a very candid conversation about her journey through IVF and the loss of her mother. It was so heartwarming to hear how she has cultivated hope in the midst of a very difficult journey that she is currently still walking on. So just be aware that there is some very sensitive subject matter discussed today. If you find yourself being triggered in any way, feel free to pause or feel free to reach out to a local mental health professional to process your thoughts. If it brings up some challenging feelings, I really encourage you to reach out to a mental health professional to further dive into what you experienced today. But it was an enriching conversation, and I hope that it encourages you. Let's get started. Hello and welcome back to the Joyfully Free Journey. I'm your host, Lacey Reeves, and I am so excited for today's conversation. Today on the podcast, we have one of my dear friends who has just such a powerful testimony and story. She has navigated her journey with grace, and I'm so excited for you to hear more about her story. Welcome to the podcast, Sherri.
Thank you for having me.
You could have said no, but you said yes, and I'm so grateful for you.
Anything for you.
Well, Sherri and I have been friends for several years, and we have just recently expanded our friendship to a conversation we're probably going to talk about a little bit today on the podcast. But for people who have never met you and are watching the podcast for the first time, I would love to know a little bit about you, Sherri. How would you describe Sherri? So younger kid Sherri,
Okay.
Who is she?
Super shy. I mean, I'm still shy, but I was definitely a lot more shy back then. So part of me is still the same, like I won't go roller coaster riding because that scares me. But in my 20s, I think because you're just so immature when you're 20. I know I was really immature. I think I was really narcissistic. I'm very happy that like Instagram and TikTok wasn't a thing when I was in my 20s because I'm scared.
What you would have said?
Yes. Because like I had MySpace and I would like take pictures of myself and I would post it on my MySpace. And I'm thankful it was short-lived. I think I was a terrible person in my 20s.
Okay. Whoa.
I do. I don't think I think I was self-righteous. I didn't have grace for people. I don't think I understood what that meant because I thought I was very above it all. Like, you did that? I was very judgmental. I don't think I realized that because I hadn't lived life long enough and have life experiences to be like, you need to have grace for people. So I don't like who I was in my early 20s. I don't.
But you've grown and you've matured since then.
Thank God.
Praise him, friend. Praise him.
Yes.
Okay, moment of, I know this is your introduction, but I do want to at least like hop in and say, okay, like early 20s, all of us in early 20s, we all wish that we were more mature. I feel like I have stories for days about all the different things that I did that I thought I was so much better than people. And it was because I was raised in a way that was very different than some of my peers that I ended up meeting, and they didn't have the same upbringing. And that can be judgmental too, because you think the way that you're raised is just how everyone's raised. And when they don't act a certain way, it's like, what's wrong with you?
Right.
So I totally get it. But now, Sherri, how would you describe yourself now? What's one thing that like makes Sherri Sherri? It could be a couple of things, but how would you describe yourself now if you were introducing yourself to someone that you never knew?
No, I think I've come down to earth more because life has definitely humbled me. And I attribute a lot of it to who I married. I think Ian has kept me very level-headed and brought me back to reality. And shown me what's really important and not what the world can think is really important. So I married the right person. And I think that changed the trajectory of my life. And I'm super grateful for that, you know?
It's beautiful. I will say that you guys are an amazing couple.
Thank
I
you.
met Ian at church. I met you through your brother. I met Ian through church. And you guys do have a really cool like dynamic. How did you end up meeting Ian? How long have you guys known each other? What
Mhm.
part of your story did you meet him on? Did you meet him in the middle, like early 20s? And how did that come about? I'm just
No,
so cute.
I
I'm
knew
so curious.
him. I first met him when I was almost 15. My best friend is his first cousin. Guam, we
Mhm.
grew up in Guam, so Guam's super small.
Okay.
So I think there was back-to-back parties, so I don't remember which one happened first, but my girlfriend's dad was getting married. That's his godfather. So I saw him, and says that was the first time he remembers seeing me. So the fact that he remembered exactly what I was wearing and where I was sitting and is correct is like, wow, must have left an impression. I don't really wear dresses or anything like that. So that's why it kind of stuck out to him. So that was the first time I met him. Second time was at my girlfriend's sister's birthday. There was like a really long walkway to go to the restroom, and he had like Eminem was kind of big, so the bleached hair was the thing. So he bleached his hair, so he stood out like a sore thumb, you know. So we were passing by, and I was like, "Oh my god, that guy's so cute," you know. But I just like looked down. I didn't want to make eye contact or anything like that. My brother had bleached his hair too. Yeah. And so people would get them mixed up all the time. They tell my brother, "Oh, I saw you at the gym earlier." And he's like, "That's not me." And vice versa. They finally met and they're like, "Oh, you're the guy." And so they kind of started to mingle through the gym. And then he came to church. He wasn't really the church guy. One side of his family is very Catholic, one side is very Christian. So he didn't really know where to navigate that. But he started coming and he had heard God on his own. Like it was time for just personal prayer. And he heard God tell him that he loved him. And that was it. And he started to come on his own. He wanted to get involved in life group. At our church, we had to take classes before we got baptized. So my brother and my mom took him through those courses. We didn't like each other. We were just friends. So he got baptized. So he did everything on his own. And then fast forward to like college. When we're in college, it was his last semester. We bumped into each other and he was like, "Hey," and I'm like, "Hey." And we ended up just talking for like 45 minutes. And I didn't know he was skipping a class. I told him, "Oh, we're having life group at my house with some young adults if you want to come." So he's like, "I have a lot of homework." But he was the first one to show up. And from that moment on, we found every reason to be together. Been married. So I've known him since I was like 15. We got married, started dating when I was 21, and I got married at 26. So
Wow.
yeah.
Honestly, that's amazing. I know a little bit about that story, but it's also really
Hmm.
cool to hear like origin stories, you know?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
your parents, correct me if I'm wrong, were your parents missionaries in Guam?
They weren't missionaries, but they were pastors.
They were
Yeah.
pastors in Guam. How did you guys end up in Guam?
My grandfather was military, and there was a
Gotcha.
church out there, and they were going through transitions with pastors
Mhm.
leaving. And my grandpa had been one, and then another pastor came in, but they were moving back to Hawaii. So they were like, "Oh, we need somebody to go." And they asked my dad and my mom, who were in Maui, under the same branch. They were just like an extension.
Yeah.
And so they're like, "Oh, it would just be for a year until we find somebody permanent." And then my parents were there for 20 something years, you know.
Wow. So I met you in South Carolina. What was that
Mhm.
like? Did
It
you have
is.
culture shock when you moved to the States, I guess for the first time?
But yeah, it's definitely culture shock. I don't think I'm still used to like the winter. Like it's still so cold. And then people I see similarities with cultures out here and in Guam with like the value of family. And
Mhm.
so that part's really comforting and like calling auntie and this. I'm like, I've never heard the cousin part because we don't call each other cousins in Guam, but we just say we're family. We
Yeah.
found really good people to be in our circle, so we're comfortable.
And I love that, honestly. And I know you and Ian have different personalities, but you guys collectively are really good about like welcoming people in. I remember the first time I came over to your house, I was like kind of scared because I didn't feel like I knew you well enough to be at your house for some reason. Lamar knew you guys really, really well because you guys were serving together in youth, and he and Ian had gotten super duper close.
Yeah.
He just like, come on in, like this is the spread. Some people have that gift and some people have to like develop it and are taught it. But I really feel like probably because of how you were raised in a very familial environment in a close-knit community in Guam, like that just translated. Whereas others of us, I did not grow up having people in my house. This is a newer phenomena to me. And
Really?
it's something I chose to do when I had a roommate. Like I chose to do that. I had only ever really been with my nuclear family is super tight. But I'm not as close with my extended family just because we didn't live close together. I love them. We just didn't grow up together. You had all kinds of people in your house. You had people from different cultures, different ages. Some had kids, some didn't have kids. And I just love that that's who you guys are.
Thank you. Yeah, you're so funny for saying that because they think the first time, before we ever had people come up, we were still new to the church, we came to your house, your apartment, when you were living, yeah. You know which one apartment I'm talking about?
Yes, with my roommate, Jenica. Yes.
Do you remember that day?
Was it the game night?
Yes, but we ended up singing, like, you guys were singing, like, I don't know, old school songs that I didn't know, but it was funny because everybody knew it, you know, or sitcom songs that I may not have known.
I do remember
and that was hilarious. It was so funny because it just, like, it brought everybody together real quick. You know,
honestly, I learned that from a friend.
Really?
Hands down.
Oh,
I feel like because, you know, we all have our own origin story. We're talking about origin stories. We're talking about our family and how we were raised. My parents and family have been so loving and accepting of others, but I don't feel like it was more of a production, and maybe they never intended it to be that way, but that was kind of my takeaway. Like, I must have everything in order to have people over. And so because of that, we talked about what do we want our home to be like. And I definitely recommend that for anyone who's in a roommate situation, talking about it, because if you have different values, then you might not be compatible roommates. And then that carried us into me and Lamar starting our home together, deciding what do we want our core values as a couple to be. But it started as roommates. And so Jen and I both said, hey, you know, we really want to have people over. We want to be able to have a space where people can come over, Bible studies, hang out, stuff like that. So we were very intentional with doing that. But girl, that was not in my comfort zone. I'm like, people are going where? But it was
you handled it so gracefully because I couldn't tell. I just thought that was naturally what you did. Right. I would not have known that was out of your comfort zone.
Praise God that was not COVID days, because we were like 25 people deep. I remember talking to you and I was like, what is it like being married, Sherri?
What did I say?
You're like, I'm just figuring this out. I don't know.
Still figuring it out.
Me too, friend. Me too. But I think that's like so interesting that people can have certain perceptions of us, right? I had no idea how caring, how compassionate, how warm you were. I was stuck in my own little world, my little bubble, not trying to let people in. I was just talking about this with someone else. Like, we can put up this facade of what we think that people expect of us, or put up this like kind of shield so that people can't hurt us. Because I do deal with like those insecurities of being rejected. Like, as bubbly as I am, there's this deep core longing to be accepted, you know? Wow. And I think that is the beauty of friendship, is like when you find those people that you can really be yourself with.
Yeah. And you were always so kind. Like, I always tell you, the first time we ever met, you made me feel like we had been friends for like years, you know?
Funny, crazy. I feel like friendship is one of those things that's like an anomaly at times. Like, you just really don't know who you need in your life until you go through something, you know? It's great to have like these very like, yes, the game night friends, you know, like the people that you can have fun with. But I truly do believe that like the test of a relationship and a friendship is who shows up during the tough times, for sure. And you guys have definitely done that for us. I'm just curious, because we know each other so well, but you have like quite a story, you know, you have quite a story as far as things that you have personally overcome. I'm just curious if you would like to share a little bit about like a few dreams that you might have had that are yet in process, you know?
Yeah.
You're currently walking a journey to
Mhm.
expand your family, but I would love to know a little bit about where you are in that process.
Yeah. I mean, you always think when you get married, you have married and you have kids and you just go on with your life.
Hmm.
So I thought that that's what would have happened for us. We'd been married for a couple years at that point, and it was like that desire to have kids and start our family was really, really growing. And I think it was my first miscarriage. I was 10 days late, and we weren't trying actively.
Wow.
And I was like, I'm never, ever late. Like, I'm on the dot.
Hmm.
And I took a test, it was negative, but it shattered me because I wasn't trying and I wasn't like we weren't in that place yet. We just knew eventually it was coming.
Yeah.
And I think from that devastation, I remember sitting on the floor in our bedroom and I just cried. And he's like, "Why are you so sad?" And I'm like, "Because I wasn't pregnant, not that I knew of." And I was like, "I think I really want a baby." And he's
Wow.
always been wanting a baby since the day we got married. So I think
Yeah.
he was just like, "Oh, thank God." Like she's ready,
Yeah.
And so we definitely tried. I went to my OB and she was like, "Well, you have to be actively trying for a year," which I think is very foolish. Like
Mm.
if you've been married for a few years and it hasn't happened, just go see a doctor. So I
Ooh,
really
that's
don't
good advice.
feel
I'm writing that down. Yes.
I don't feel she was in my corner at all.
Gotcha.
And she was just someone I'd just Googled and was like, just put me in with the first person. So I came back exactly a year and she was like, not pregnant. She just walked in the door and she was like, not pregnant. And I'm like, no. And she was like, okay. And she gave me this medication called Clomid. She was
Hmm.
like, you know about it? And I'm like, I mean, I've kind of been watching about it. She was like, and I was on it and I had a cycle and I wanted to die. It was just
Really?
the most painful thing I'd ever gone through. And next month I didn't get pregnant, so she upped my dose. Same thing. So she did it 3 or 4 times. And she was like, "Well, you're going to have to go see a specialist." I thought you had to have a referral, so I was waiting for a referral.
Mm.
And I never got a call. I was just waiting. Wasted time. Wasted time. So I didn't like that. So I called a fertility specialist and they were like, "Oh, our next opening," because of insurance, I knew that I was ending the fiscal year. So I was like, "Oh, we're probably not going to get an appointment till January." And they were like, "Oh, we don't have an opening until October 31st. Is that okay?" I went to my first doctor's appointment. I told him, I was like, "I think I have endometriosis." And he was like, "Honestly, that's in the back of our head, but there are other tests that we can check. We could check your tubes. We could check this and that." And I'm like, "Okay." He's like, "That's a last resort." He was like, "But let's go check you out." He did a scan and he immediately saw I had cysts covering my ovaries. And
Goodness.
"You probably do have endometriosis." And at that point, I was like, no, I told Ian he didn't have to come because I'm like, it's just a consultation. I'm like, no big deal. And I remember crying. I got lost and I'm crying and I'm like holding the phone. I'm like, I don't know where I am. Disease. And I'm going to have surgery. Oh, it was awful. And then that was October. November, we had thrown a young adult worship service in the choir room upstairs.
Yeah. Was it like the night of praise and Thanksgiving?
Yes. Yes.
How
Yeah.
did I remember that?
I
Yes.
don't know. You
I
did really
remember
good.
that. Wow. Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that was like I think 3 days before my surgery and I just worshiped. I just
Mm.
worshiped. Like I was like, I don't know what's going to happen. I'm hopeful and I'm just going to worship. And then my surgery came and I'd watched so many YouTubes. People were like, "Oh, once they got their endo cleared, they got pregnant." So I'm like, "Okay, this is going to be great." And we go in and I remember waking up from anesthesia and I felt like it had been a long day because I'd gotten there at like 7 in the morning and it felt like the sun was already setting. And Ian leaned over and he rubbed my hand and I'm like barely opening my eyes and I'm like, "What happened?" And he's like, "We're going to do IVF." And I was like, "Why?" And he said they had to remove your tubes. And I was gutted, and we got in the car and the nurses were so sweet. They're like, "I know that we're out of line for saying this, but you have a good man." And I was like, "I know, you
Mm.
know. And we drove home and he's like, "What are you feeling?" And I'm like, "Empty." and I was so angry and so frustrated. So I was recovering at home. And if you've ever had that surgery, a laparoscopic surgery, it's really painful the first couple of days, and you just feel terrible. And I remember I couldn't move. I had just stayed in bed, and I wanted to find a message that, kind of made me feel like I was the victim. Like I was right to feel frustrated. I was right to feel robbed. I was right to feel angry. And I couldn't. And God brought me to First Thessalonians, like, give thanks in all circumstances. And I was so mad. I was like, why would you give me that scripture? Like, give me some time to like
Yeah.
process this,
Yeah.
But I had to fight through it. And then I listened to a message by Ginny Smith. Her husband had died a few years before from cancer. And she was just like, it's not your fault. And you have to have hope again. And I don't know why that hit me differently at that moment. And I just cried, and I got angry, but my anger wasn't towards God, but my anger was towards the enemy. And I wrote Ian, and I was like, gosh, our kids must be so important to the kingdom of God because they're being robbed, even for that. I can't even conceive them, And I was like, the enemy messed with the wrong people. He just made me more mad at him. I'm an introvert. I'm a thinker. I need to pray, and I need to have my own time. So the big New Year's Eve service we had for church, and we gave an offering, and I didn't have a job at that time. So we were on one income. And so I gave a really pathetic offering. It was really sad, but that was all we had. That was like all we had. And
Wow.
we gave it, and that was in December, the end of December, and Ian was still coming. He was coming home, and he's like, I might have something, but I don't know, and I don't want to tell you. So I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. We'd been gone from Guam for like 2 or 3 years at this point. And he's like, I had all this mail. My mom said I had to, get rid of it. And in the middle, he found his Gov Guam retirement. We needed $6,000 to start. My parents had given us two, and we felt hopeful. We're like, okay, we could do this. We could just eat rice and beans. We could save this money. And when we opened the mail, we had gotten a check for $4,000 from his Gov Guam or retirement. So we had everything about 2 weeks after we had given that offering. And Ian went up to the room, and he started dancing to Ty Tribbett's He Turned It. It was so cute, because we knew only God could have done something like that.
Yes.
So all that just to start.
All that
God was so faithful. Yeah. With IVF, everything is so calculated, and every step is so crucial. We had started in March to make the embryos, and so they extracted 10 follicles out of me. I already had endometriosis growing on one side, so they didn't remove those because it would contaminate them.
Wow.
So I had 10, and then the next day, so they fertilized them that day, and then the next day we only had, I think, 8 made it to be an embryo, and you need them to make it to day 5. And by day 5, we had 7. So that was a really hopeful number. And so in April, we did our first round, and anything over in your HCG number, anything over 2550, you're positive pregnant. So I think I had like an 80. So it was exciting, but you have to come back in 2 days to make sure your numbers are doubling. And my number kind of doubled, not really. And I just remembered just crying and just being just so devastated. And then they made us come on day 3 to make sure that was doubling. And it was kind of up there. So we're hopeful. And we go to our first ultrasound to check the heartbeat, and there was no heartbeat. And I remember Ian just like falling on my back. He was sitting behind me. And I was like, don't cry, don't cry, don't cry, don't cry, don't cry in here, don't cry, And we left, we got in the car, and the moment I slammed the door, I just burst into tears.
Right.
I just lost it. And it was absolutely devastating, and we had to go through that and miscarry. And I told Ian, I was like, because I kind of knew it. I felt it. I was like, something's wrong. So I kind of processed it, and I knew. But for him, he was so gutted. And I think people don't talk about men that they hurt too during fertility, that it's their child too. Yes, it's our body, but it's their child, that they're just as committed and just as much loving of this, this life that they want to create. So I told him, you need to mourn this, but I need you to be my rock. I need you to come back. And he did, and we started again. And in September of that same year, we did it again. and we got pregnant. Numbers were better, numbers were doubling, and we got into the ultrasound to hear the heartbeat, and I was like, oh God, I'm gonna throw up, because you're just so nervous. And then you just hear that doo-doo, 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 and I just cried. I just lost it. It was the most beautiful sound you've ever heard, just your heartbeat of your baby,
Yeah.
you know.
Wow.
And every day we went, every week that we went, you could hear it getting stronger and stronger, and it was the best feeling. And we were so excited. And then my mom got sick, years of infertility. And then my mom got sick. And my whole pregnancy, I don't really know. I mean, I didn't take maternity pictures, and I did nothing because my job was to be a daughter and to take care of her. And she was dying. She was dying. She was in the hospital for like 5 months. And I gave birth, and it was like I had to have a C-section. So I had to stay in the hospital longer. I was seeing her every day for like 12 hours,
Mhm.
My brother had to come to be there for her while I was in the hospital. So we weren't this big, happy family celebrating
Right.
everything. It was like, okay, I had a baby. I was like, here, Ian, you need to take him. I got to go to the hospital to see my mom. I'm like pumping, getting to the hospital, seeing her for about 20 minutes because I have a newborn, going home, showering because I was in the hospital, feeding my child that's like screaming.
That
We
is
did that.
a lot.
Yeah. And then she died about 5 weeks after I'd given birth. You don't want your baby to feel that, even though he doesn't know what's going on, but
Right.
so Elias was my saving grace during that time. Like God knew what I needed, because if I didn't have him, I think I would have I don't know if I would have recovered, because my
Mhm.
mom was my everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, we still want to have children. Like about 3 years ago, we had tried again, failed, tried again. I'd gotten pregnant, so happy. And then my father-in-law gets cancer. So it's like, oh my God, we're just like so stressed out. And so, yeah, we're still being hopeful for the next several months, but it's a journey. And
Right.
I'm at a point where, is God's no the answer, or am I supposed to keep fighting? So
Wow.
that's kind of where I'm at personally
Yeah.
with the next.
That's,
Yeah.
I mean, that's so powerful, Sherri. Thank you for sharing. I think,
Yeah.
as your friend that has been alongside you, kind of in the periphery,
Hmm.
honestly, some of the things that you shared, I was like, because you really
Hmm.
don't know the depths of what someone is going on. We can know surface level, right? I knew the
Yeah.
timeline of you, like your baby shower, and then very shortly thereafter, your mom passed away. And it just was so heart wrenching because it's supposed to be a joyful time. And then
Hmm.
you're grieving a loss, you're welcoming a life, and then releasing a life, and that I
Yeah.
can't even begin to imagine what that's like. But I do hear hope in your story. It
Yeah.
has been very challenging, all the things that you guys have overcome. But I am honestly so in awe of how much grace and how much hope you still exude in spite
Yeah.
of all that you have gone through. How do you
Thank you.
even cultivate and keep hope alive while you're waiting for what you believe is a promise from God? You said there must be some
Hmm.
amazing callings on my children's life because of all that we've overcome. And I will say
Yeah.
that your son Elias is such a light. He is the sweetest, the
Yes.
cutest, sweetest little boy. He is the sweetest thing ever. And I love that you allow him to call us Auntie Lacey and Uncle Lamar. I love that.
Yes.
But
There's no other way.
how are you keeping hope alive in spite of all that you are currently walking through?
I think because no matter what, like, yes, what we've gone through, and there's so much of the story that I hadn't shared,
Right.
it's devastating. And it's easy to just walk away and be like, God, you didn't, you're not real. If you were real, you would have healed my mom. If you were real, I wouldn't be going through infertility,
Hmm.
and some of those things I'm not going to understand.
Right.
That's just the way it is. But my trust is in God, because no matter what, he is still good.
Mm.
And in fertility, he's good. And in death, he's still good. And he's still God, and he deserves the glory, and your podcast, joyfully free. I was thinking of the scripture, the joy of the Lord is my strength. That's a weird scripture. When I was reading it last night, I was like, I don't understand.
Hmm.
Because you think people who are, you think the joy of the Lord is your strength. They're these really happy people all the time,
Right.
that there's nothing going on in their life, but you don't realize they may have lost somebody through death. They may
Right.
have be struggling through addiction or depression or anxiety, infertility or whatever. It's the strength of God in their life that gets them going
Right.
and keeps them going. So that's just what I have to cling to, is my hope in God that he has my future sealed, that it is good. He has, and not just that we have life, but we have an abundant life. And I have to be at peace with, if God gives us another baby through IVF, God, that's amazing. But if
Right.
he doesn't, that's amazing, because I have
Right.
this amazing kid, and maybe God wants us to go another route, and he'd
Mhm.
have to give me peace, and he'd have to, give me and Ian that agreement that
Right.
maybe we go a different route,
Mhm.
because we kind of feel that as Elias gets older, he might have a friend that needs a home, a safety net, and we would be that. Like, we would always have our friends over, but I want our place to be where the kids feel safe. They feel like they would be fed, they would be watched over, they would be protected,
Yeah.
so we don't know. And I'm okay if it doesn't happen. And it doesn't mean God loves me less, doesn't mean that God's not real,
Mm.
it just means that it wasn't going to happen. And you
Mm.
just have to be at peace with that. And that's a really weird place to be. And I don't know if that's the right answer, I
No,
don't,
none of
and
us do.
yeah, you don't know what the future holds. And that's called life, unfortunately,
I think what you shared about the joy of the Lord being our strength, I absolutely love that verse. I'm like, okay, let me keep it together. There have been certain scriptures that I clung to throughout life. And for me, yes, that one has definitely informed this podcast 100%. There is an additional scripture that I love in Isaiah. I believe it's in Isaiah 40 or 43. I cannot remember the address, the
Okay.
reference, but it's in perfect peace. He will keep those whose minds are stayed on him. And that's more of like the old school version. The one that I like is, it says, in perfect peace, he will keep those whose minds cannot be changed because they trust in him.
That's
And it
good.
goes on to say, trust in the Lord because the Lord alone is the everlasting rock. And I honestly do believe that when you were saying, that God is still good, even if he doesn't answer our prayers the way we want them to, that is
Right.
such a hard place to get to, Sherri,
Mhm.
because in the wanting and in the longing, I do believe that he gives us those desires, right? Some of our desires are just like, I want to be a millionaire, but why?
Right.
So be a God-given desire, but I truly the desire to have a family, that's going to be able a way to bring glory to him and to raise people and little humans that love him. He's all about legacy, right? And so being in that waiting season, I too am in that waiting season of like really wanting, a lot. Like I would love to see where this goes. I would love to grow my family. I would love to do all the things, but not understanding always the timing. And
Yeah.
that's what I'm hearing you say, even though there were a lot of things that were out of your control, one thing that was in your control was your response. And I
Right.
love the fact that you said, I kept
Mhm.
showing up, I worship, we praised together, we
Mhm.
were intentional with continuing to do the things we need to do, even though it didn't feel good. And I
Yeah.
think that's where a lot of times we can get tripped up is in that in between. Like we want that end goal, we want that destination that, for some people it could be, like you said, like their job, their career, whatever goals or things that they're trying to attain.
Yeah.
And it could be family, right? It could be all of it, but sometimes we want to be there so badly that we miss all this goodness that happens in the waiting, in the journey, right?
Yeah.
And I just love the fact that you would just shed light on some of the things that you do, that to do, even if the outcome that you're currently seeing is not the outcome you desire. What
Yeah.
else have you done to stay hopeful during your journey? And this could be your journey of infertility, or excuse me, not infertility, because I'm not speaking that over you, but your journey to continue to grow your family, even your journey of discovering more of who Sherri is. Because as women, we can really get so wrapped up in these roles and the good stuff, and they're all good things. But like sometimes we have to remember that we are our own people. So how are you continuing to stay hopeful and cultivate hope as you're on this journey?
I don't know. That's hard. I think because I've seen God be so faithful, you know, and he gives you the desires of your heart. It's, you gotta, you know, go into the deep with God, you know, and I think God's taking me on a different journey. When we'd gotten pregnant the last time that we miscarried, I was doing everything that I'd done before. You know, I was giving, I was praising, but you can't put new wine in old wineskin. You know, I can't do the same thing I'm supposed what I was doing because it's not a ritual. You know, it's not a, oh, I did this at this, so I should have another, I should have a baby now.
Right. It's not
So
transactional. You're right.
yeah. So I have to, you know, okay, God, you're taking me to another level, but I don't know where. I don't know how. I am older, so it is scary. And I have all these other new fears of being an older mom, just health wise as well. You know, like, can I do it? I've had so many complications with surgeries leading up to this. That is this the wise thing to do? You know, is this the wise thing to do for my family, my child who needs a mother and a father? You know, am I putting my life at risk to do this? And I haven't heard an answer yet. So I'm still seeking and I'm still like, God, I'm trying to hear you. I don't hear anything yet. So I don't know. I just have to, I'm in it. So I can't give you the best response, but just keep praying, keep praising, keep listening, you know, and being open to whatever God says, and whatever God says is the answer, and to be at peace with that, you know.
That's the hard part when the answer that he has isn't the one that we necessarily thought, you know. That's the wrestling that I find myself doing. I know for me personally, when I started this podcast initially, I was just I was in a dark space. So I was dealing with anxiety. I recently gotten married probably within a year and a half. I was like trying to start the podcast, and I'm not saying it was the wrong time at all, but I definitely don't think I had the right tools in my tool belt to be able to navigate that transition. Like you were speaking about the birth of Elias, right? Like such a joyful time that was clouded by your mom going to be with Jesus, you know? And I would say during the time when I was starting the podcast, joyful time, like you're a newlywed, you should be so excited.
Yeah.
Everything is great, like on top of the world. But in my own personal life, I was really struggling with anxiety. I was really wrapped up in some mental health challenges that I was going through and didn't even really know it. And so I'm taking this out on Lamar. I feel like I'm army crawling every day emotionally just to get to base level. It was really, and I was ended up dealing with later I found out it was anxiety, and I was just burnt out from going and trying to strive and achieve and all those things. And so taking a step back, where Joyfully Free came from was originally a declaration that I said over myself, like, I am joyfully free, even though I didn't believe it. Honestly, Sherri, I honestly did. I was like the most depressed I've ever been in my life. And I was like, I am joyfully free, crying, you know. What would you say for the person? It could be regarding fertility or just in general to someone because I have a feeling that someone who's watching this is 100% going through what you are currently facing, or maybe a little bit earlier in their journey as well to grow their family. And then there are going to be some people that are like just waiting on God and really believe in God for this thing, and they haven't seen it yet. You know, what would you say to that person? What words of encouragement or advice would you give to that person who's just trying to hold on to hope, to a dream that they really feel like they're supposed to have, but they haven't yet seen?
Yeah. I mean, you have to, faith while it works, right? You've got to put in the work. If someone like me, I don't have tubes anymore, so I'm not going to wait and be like, God's just going to make me get pregnant. No, I have to actively put my faith into action. I have to go to the doctor. I have to find the right doctor. I was
Mm-hmm.
intentional with my doctors. I found the ones that were really good with endometriosis because that was something that I was struggling with.
Right.
And so I knew I needed to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to hope for yourself and you have to know what God told you. You have to
Mm-hmm.
trust in that.
Yeah.
And it's okay to cry. It's okay to be frustrated. It's okay
Mm-hmm.
to feel the things. It's okay. That's healthy.
Right.
It's okay to grieve that moment. I had to grieve the fact that I couldn't have children, because God blesses those that grieve.
Mm-hmm.
So go through it, cry it out. God's big enough to hear your frustrations. But yeah, on the practical side, see the right doctors, get your friends in the corner with you, the ones that
Yeah.
have gone through it with you, that can pray with you, that can encourage you, that you can lean on and just cry or just be frustrated with the whole process, because it's not easy. It really isn't, and it can be so lonely and isolating at times, and that doesn't help.
Mm-hmm.
And have your husband find people too, because it's hard to be his emotional support as well when you're dealing with it. So if he has someone as well that, and the burden that men carry with
Mm-hmm.
life and infertility, they need a support as well. They need to,
Yes.
share.
How impactful have your relationships been on your journey as you guys have been walking through all of the things that you've walked through? Have you been able to lean on your friends as support systems? How has that positively impacted you guys?
I mean, I think our circle is really a lot smaller. And I think that just happens naturally as you get married and
Yeah.
you get older through life. But our friends are very supportive. So that's been wonderful. And because we were the first to go through pregnancy and everything,
Mm-hmm.
we've gotten to see friends slowly be like, I'm dealing with infertility. And
Ah,
we get to be there. And I'm grateful for that. And I'm
yeah.
grateful that friends are comfortable to share it. And that sadly, it's infertility is so much bigger and it's affecting more people. And I don't like that. And how do we stop that? Because I feel like that's a spiritual thing that the enemy's trying to
Mm,
get these young children.
yeah.
He comes to steal, to kill, and destroy. And he's working,
He is working.
especially
He's
in faith
busy.
homes. Yeah. And we need to be activated because he's not supposed to have any authority.
Mm-hmm.
And we give him that authority and we let those fears and anxiety come over us. And my sister-in-law had sent me a message by Nancy Dufresne. I don't know if I'm saying her name right, but she was like, that's not mine. That anxiety is
Don't
not
accept
mine.
it.
Yeah, that disease is not mine. Whatever, you may be going through it, but that's not mine.
Right.
I don't receive that. And that hit me so hard and I cried and I had to like tell my mind and my heart and my body, I'm like, that's not mine. My body, is a temple. My body's healthy. My body's strong. My womb is strong. My womb is going to carry it, baby. I have to declare those things over my body,
Yes.
every day. Every day I have to, and you have to not stop worshiping because that's really what you got to do, because there is the financial side. It's really expensive. The emotional part, the hormones, when you start taking the medications, you're probably not a nice person. So you
Hmm.
need to make sure that your spouse understands, don't take this personally. I'm like not in my right set right now,
Right.
and your marriage goes through it, and you have to be together. You
Mm-hmm.
really have to tell him what you're going through.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a lot, but Elias is worth it. I'd do it
Yes, he
1,000 times.
is my buddy. I love it. I have a couple of questions because I mean, you have been so transparent. Thank you, first of all,
Hmm.
so much for just sharing, being an
Yeah.
open book, and even being a resource for me. I appreciate it so
Yeah.
much. I just have this feeling that there will be somebody watching who is exactly in this place
Hmm.
and might not have a resource or a friend that they know that has walked through this journey. So if they don't have someone in their corner that has walked this journey, what resources do you recommend? Are there any books or any like sermons or podcasts or just resources that you found that are helpful that could benefit that person, or even just for like a single person that hasn't ever thought about their reproductive health at all and they want that for the future? Do you have any advice for them?
Yes. Of like if you're younger or now, definitely go see a doctor. Even if everything seems normal,
Okay.
share with your doctor everything that
Yeah.
you're going through. If like you're, they'll ask you questions. If like you're in immense amount of pain, that's not normal. So
Mm-hmm.
talk to your doctor, find the right doctor. At least in South Carolina, if you haven't gotten pregnant, that's really your goal. You don't need a referral to see a fertility specialist. Give them a
Right.
call, because I wish I had started like years before. And our doctors are so wonderful. There's nothing that you could tell them that would, freak them out,
Surprise
or,
them.
you
Yeah.
know, they've heard it all. I would be wary of people like influencers, like follow the medical doctors,
Love it.
like, yes, there are practical things like toxins and those kinds of things, but you should just be doing that for your general health anyways.
Right.
Be careful what you're exposing your body to. Start feeding yourself the good things for fertility. So that's why you really need to talk to an actual doctor, because what worked for someone may not work for you. And don't compare someone's journey to your own, because
Yes.
that's, you know,
Ooh.
that saying of comparison is the thief of joy.
Yep.
You're going to be like, well, I did everything so and so did. Why am I not pregnant? Why do I not have that career? Why don't I have that kind of husband? Or, don't do that.
Absolutely.
Definitely don't compare yourself. Everyone's journey is special. Everyone's journey is different. And you just need to find people that will encourage you where you're at.
And encouraging people where you're at is so something that I love about you. I was at your house, and I remember
Mhm.
like about a year ago that I told you that we wanted to start a family,
Mhm.
and you just were like, "What?" It was just like, "Really?" Because I mean, I hadn't really ever been that transparent before, and I was like, "I
Mhm.
think this is what we want to do." And
Yeah.
I'm so set, and like I'm not set in my ways in a bad way, but I'm learning how to let go. And like people say let go and let God, and I was like, what does that mean? What does that mean? It means let go of control. That's what it means. And so
Yep.
I'm learning, that's where I am on my journey, letting go of control, letting go of my expectations, and
Mhm.
not losing hope, but just recognizing that even if something doesn't happen, like you said, even if it doesn't happen the way I think, even if it doesn't happen in my timing, God is still good. And he
Mhm.
can use where I am right now for
Yeah.
a purpose. And maybe I'm on this journey to learn something so that I
Mhm.
can be better prepared for what I believe he has for me. And I would say I'm so grateful for you being on my journey, and thank you for
Yes.
just sharing, Sherri. Honestly,
Absolutely.
I appreciate it. I do like to, I know this was, I'm like, I have some things that I need to work on. Clearly, I was taking notes. I said to make sure, I would just dare say, I know you might not consider yourself this, but I definitely believe that you're a women's health advocate. And
Okay.
the way you were talking, I said, listen to this woman, people. And yes, don't take the ads, don't take the bait on social media with all the influencers. You're right.
Yeah.
Doctors are in their role for a reason, and God can use doctors to help as well. If someone is struggling or
Mhm.
just looking for some support, how can they contact you to learn more about your journey? I'm just saying, if you started a support group, I would be in it. Just saying.
Oh, thanks.
But if anyone wanted to reach out to you, how can they reach out to you?
I mean, yeah, I'm not an influencer, but if you need
Okay.
a friend in your corner, yeah, you can message me on Instagram. I think it's Sherri dot, and then my email is sherri.jackson7@gmail.com.
I love that. Okay, so like to kind of wrap it up, I'd like to do rapid fire
Okay.
questions, just like little lightning round so people can know the version of Sherri that I know and love as
Okay.
well.
Yep.
Okay, what's your go-to morning routine?
I want to sleep in as long as possible.
Yes, love it. Coffee or tea?
Ugh. Coffee, I guess.
Love it. If you could live anywhere in the world, where would it be?
An island, Guam, Hawaii, something near an ocean,
Take me
you
with
know.
you. Thank you.
Yes.
Early bird or night owl?
Night owl.
I think you just answered that question. Favorite movie genre?
Ooh, it depends. I love movies. It just depends what I'm in the mood for.
What's your
So
guilty
good.
pleasure?
Oh, like food is my
Yeah.
guilty pleasure. I like Flamin' Hot Cheetos. Yeah.
No.
Yes. I haven't had it in years because it's so bad for you.
And thank you so much for being
You're
here.
welcome.
And I'm thrilled that I'm part of your journey. I'm grateful for your friendship, and I'm so excited for the people who will see this that will get encouragement. So thank you for sharing your story.
You're welcome.
For everyone watching, thank you so much for being part of this journey. And don't forget to discover your joy and live authentically free. And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.